What's up, YouTube? As you can see, it is clearly backlog day. Going through some videos, in this case of Zoo. This is like when I first started picking Zoo back up this season, trying out like these tireless trackers and stuff like that. And I figured I would just throw this league up there. We've shown a couple like trophy leagues with Zoo. I don't remember if this is a trophy league or not, but we're just gonna roll through it because I need something to upload today, and I'm still messing around with Lorien Revealed and Demir Shadow. So this one's gonna be like probably pretty quick. We'll see, but we'll discuss some of the lines, kind of go through. This is a list by Ara something that I pulled off of the MTG Goldfish. I think it was like top 4 in a modern challenge. But I really wanted to try out Tireless Tracker because that's one of my like top 5 cards ever. So looks like we're up against Burn. Ragavan on turn 1 into like Kavu on turn 2. Really, really solid. Since we get the Ragavan hit, we can just get a tap Triome, make our Kavu a 5/5, which is pretty tough for Burn to deal with. Tireless Tracker not looking the most thrilling, but hey, we get a Scion down. And I believe we're just going to aggressively kill our opponent here. Yeah. That was a really quick game 1. Good showing from Zoo. If you're looking for like a solid tempo style deck in Modern, then I think Zoo's a very, very good option. Get a lot of good 1-drops. You get some explosive threats like Scion of Draco and Territorial Kavu. Usually the fail rate that I see with the deck is 1 when your mana doesn't come together, which honestly isn't that much, but it can happen when you like naturally draw basics too often, or if you missequence your fetches in the first couple of turns. Or the other fail rate is when you have a set of cards that like out tempo your cards. And kind of what I mean for that is your opponent having a turn 1 Ragavan and you not having a turn 1 answer. So now all of a sudden you're getting out tempoed by Ragavan pretty hard. Or worse than that is like a Territorial Kavu into a dress down where they get to kill your dude and draw a card. But other than that, like, you get access to Leyline Binding. That's one of, if not the best removal spells in Modern. Just 1 mana, instant speed, exile anything. You get Neshoba Brawler and Territorial Kavu that are both really, really good beat sticks. Or if you want to run Tarmogoyf, you can do that. Here, I just didn't want to fetch. I didn't want to put myself dead to, like, double Boros Charm. I figure if they've got, like, just burn spells rolled up, then, yeah, not much I'm going to do about that. But if they don't, maybe I can figure something out here. So at the moment, at least, our opponent does have to have 2 actual burn spells or Deflecting Palm. I'd say I should have played around Deflecting Palm, but it was not really on my radar. So here, we're just going to go for the skewer on them. I'm going to hold up Leyline Binding in case they find a creature, but unfortunately they find a Lava Spike. So on to game number 3. The mana base can be a little painful, but obviously coming from the Shadow background, I have a reasonable idea of how to manage painful mana bases. Sometimes. Not all the times, but every now and then. But yeah, Zoo does like a really good job of feeling kind of like old school Grixis Shadow, which I know I've said on stream before when we played Zoo. It's got that tempo-y feel of, hey, I'm going to interact a little bit, but I'm just going to put down like some really sizable creatures that you can't deal with very well. Oh, I also forgot that match one. So as you saw it kind of cut in and out there, my internet went out in the middle of that match. So I ended up having to call up a buddy to log on to my account and have me walk through the plays for him. So it didn't log everything into the same like match log. Having a territorial Kavu get Flame of Anord, Anor, Flame of Anord, is very annoying. That's clever. I don't care who you are, that's funny. So, if you've never played against the magic card Spell Stutter Sprite before, it's one in a blue, flash flyer. When it enters the battlefield, you counter a spell if its CMC is less than or equal to the number of fairies you control. For whatever reason, this card's been around since Lorwyn Block. Fairies was one of the most dominant standard decks, really, really good extended decks. Bitter Blossom was banned in the early days of Modern, so it never really picked up any traction early on. But there's a lot of people that confuse Spell Stutter Sprite and think that it says like counter target spell unless they pay X, where X is the number of fairies you control. And that is not the case. So if you ever have a situation with like a spell stutter trying to counter a one drop, if you kill the spell stutter in response, when the trigger resolves, it sees, hey, there's no fairies here. Well, that CMC of that spell is more than 0, so we're gonna counter it. On a side note, if you ever want a fantastic sideboard option for Living End, 4 copies of Spell Stutter Sprite can't be Force of Negation. Doesn't matter if they kill the sprite on the stack, it still counters the Living End. So keep that in mind. But I think this ended up being like the first time I'd actually run into this wizard deck. So I really didn't know what to expect here. Like, obviously, a bunch of counter spells, but past that, who knows? So, opponent bolts my tracker and cycles a nimble obstructionist to stop my fetch land, which I'm not gonna lie, I was not ready for, like, at all. I was so far down the list of things I was expecting there. The bolt I expected, which is why I didn't start with fetching. A lot of times with tracker, if you play it out and immediately like try to crack your fetch lands and your opponent's sitting on a removal spell, you're not going to get any value. But if you wait for them to make a move and then you crack your fetches, then they either have to like let you get the clue token or they have to respond with a second removal spell, in which case Tireless Tracker was card advantage one way or the other. Either I got 2 cards out of their hand or I got clues to get more cards into mine. But either way, the lethal combination of Flame of Anor, Spell Stutter Sprite, Vendilion Click, um, Nimble Obstructionist got them that game. But we're on to game number 2. I brought in Rest in Peace because they do play like Snapcaster Mage. So I wanted to make sure I had an answer to that. Flusterstorm can protect Kavu from like Flame of Anor. Am I even saying that right? Like, if I'm just completely off base, I hope somebody corrects me. That was a misclick. I saw white and enchantment. I was like, oh, I'm putting the Rest in Peace in play, and accidentally clicked the Leyline binding, so it just kind of sat there, and you know. But we got to flex with the second Kavu, so it was fine. But 100% misclick there. This is game number 3 against Wizards, I believe. Wizards, Wizarinos. They want to bolt the tracker, the Wild Nikotl, that's fine. So opponent going for basic island there makes me assume Blood Moon. So if I'm assuming Blood Moon, I'm holding up Dromoka's command for sure. Uh, the petty theft, let's pause real quick so we can talk about this interaction in case it ever comes up for you. The petty theft there is really unfortunate because Dromoka's command requires 2 targets, and the targets are very specific. So you have to choose 2 between prevent all damage, target instant or sorcery spell will deal this turn. Target player sacrifices an enchantment, put a 1/1 counter on target creature, or target creature you control fights target creature you don't control. So if my opponent puts a Blood Moon into play, like if they end of my turn, petty theft my Nikotl, untap, cast a Blood Moon, I cannot Dromoka's command that Blood Moon. I can choose for them to sacrifice an enchantment, but I don't have another legal target for Dromoka's command, so I can't cast it. Like I can't prevent all damage from an instant or sorcery because there's not one. I can't put a 1/1 counter on a target creature because there's not one. Even they don't have one. I can't have a target creature I control fight a creature I don't control because there's no creatures. So it can be very, very awkward if you rely on like floating mana for Dromoka's command because you have to have a creature. You got to have something to do with it. Have to have targets. But I'm trying to wait to see if my opponent does put like a Blood Moon or something on the stack before I fetch. But obviously, like into turn, I'm going to fetch. Counterspell my Scion of Draco. Pretty unfortunate. Like, I can put a counter on the Wild Nikotl and fight the Brazen Borrower, so I'm not out of it there. But they do have this Magus. Like, luckily, this Ragavan top deck is phenomenal, so now I can fight the Magus if I need to. But that was more luck than anything. EE for 1. A little bit surprised that they just like aggressively popped that EE. Feel like taking one more hit would have been okay, but I guess Tribal Flames is a thing. So they go for EE on 2 to blow up this brawler, and then they don't attack with a Brazen Borrower. I don't understand that no attack because the Brazen Borrower can't block anyway. So there's like no reason to hold the Brazen Borrower back. And I would be at 1 life here instead of 4, which obviously is a big difference against a deck with like lightning bolts and such. Also, could have just ignored that stern scolding and held up the stubborn denial for the next thing. That would have been fine. But either way, we're going to match 3. 1 lander, mulligan. One of the things I've learned from watching like Black Belt MTG play a lot of Zoo is you just literally cannot keep 1 land hands. Can't do it. Like it will wreck your world if you sit here and try to keep 1 landers. Good old Blood Moon. It's going to get good old Stubborn Denialed. Now that feels like a really good tempo turn. And it's part of the reason that I didn't want to like crack my treasure token to play out a threat is I really wanted to be able to Tireless Tracker plus a land here. Then hitting their Spyro is just like icing on the cake. Opponent doesn't want to deal with our card advantage, our 4 clues sitting around with another fetch land. Can you blame them? Like, I wouldn't want to deal with that. That seems brutal. You know what else seems brutal? The fact that if you're watching this, you may or may not be subscribed to the YouTube channel. So, if you're liking the commentary and liking the content, drop a like, drop a sub. That's my call to action. You got to have one on like every video. So this is like one of the earliest looks at Bowmasters I got to see. So when they Bowmastered my Ragavan, I was a little peeved, little perturbed, but it's kind of okay because we still just have tracker binding, stub, hold up this Savai Triome to cycle, but say hold up the Savai Triome to cycle. They've got Bowmaster, so it's a little awkward to be doing any cycling. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. We have tireless tracker. Fury's a little unfortunate. I don't know why I didn't crack for a clue there. It was very clearly a mistake. Wear and Tear, not the greatest draw. Wear and Tear for Fable of the Mirror Breaker and Blood Moon. Reasonable game 3 hand. Like, we've got turn 2 Kavu. We had turn 2 Kavu. I guess we got to rely on turn 2 like Scion of Draco or Ragavan. Kind of like the Ragavan here to be able to hold up Bolt in case they have a Ragavan. And then do kind of like this, where if they don't, I'm just going to get down Scion of Draco. But we've got 8 points of burn currently rolled up. We'd be hitting them to 9, so we could just go like, hit you with Scion, Tribal Flames, you bolt, you put you to 1, just cut off all your fetches, you can't shock in a second land. All right, so turn 1 Underworld Breach. I'm really hoping that Ragavan can connect and I can get Kavu down. Never mind. Opponent's really not liking to see that Kavu this league. Be a little mana efficient, get down the Tireless Tracker. They're going to be mana efficient and get down the Asmo Mordekaiser Kuldakar. Whatevs. All right. Pop in with Ragavan, get Scion of Draco. So them having a Traxa makes me believe they're like a Goryo's Vengeance variant. So if possible, I would really like to find a Stubborn Denial like ASAP, or just a Tribal Flames or something. But at the very least, we can hold up this Leyline Binding to hit like a Traxa that comes back in. We should also be adding Giganta here. I think I was kind of like keyed in on the fact that they were so on the back foot that it was fine, but we should have been adding Giganta pretty aggressively. Mulligans to Oblivion. So let's review our mulligan decisions and see if they were good or bad or what. So first hand, 1 lander. We got a Wild Nicottle and a Bolt. We're on the draw, so we'd have to get like Breeding Pool, but it's not awful. It's actually one of those times that I think I might consider keeping it if we had Stomping Ground in the deck. Second hand, no white mana, no red mana. So Kavu and Rest in Peace, and Lightning Bolt are all cut off. Third hand, no lands, obviously. Fourth hand has lands, has Hidetsugu, which is a really fantastic card in this matchup. Hit all the cookbooks, all the Asmos, all the food tokens. All right, opponent, calm down. Could play out a threat, but it just gets Asmoed here. Can also Dramoka's command and have them sacrifice an enchantment and put a 1/1 counter on the Asmo. So who's the real winner? So the reason I'm doing this on their turn is I wanted them to like tap themselves completely out to go for the construct token if that was their choice. So just like time walk them to get a token. Bone shards. But they kind of don't have much going on beyond these cookbooks. So I figure if I blow those up, then maybe I've got a chance here. They did end up finding a Daredevil, but it's kind of okay. It's like a race to see who's going to find a threat first. Also, could add Gigantha here, but I'm kind of under the impression that it's going to be a while before I can get Gigantha down. So I can always like wait and add it next turn. Kind of like wait until I get that fourth land and then add Gigantha. All right, so we've got Noble Chase Daredevil, which means I need to find a threat. Hidetsugu is pretty good. Like, killing off the food tokens isn't the greatest thing in the world, but if they don't find a way to get the Daredevil back into play, like right now, then I get to exile that. Ashiok is completely fine. We've got our lands in play already, so I don't really care about having more lands. And Hidetsugu being just like a 3 mana suspend 3/3/3 is good enough for me. Hopefully we can Dramoka's command, get some sort of value out of it. They mill themselves, which definitely leads me to believe it's a Goryo's Vengeance deck. End up putting the counter on Hidetsugu so that I could kill off the Ashiok if need be. But instead, we're just going for the faster clock. And they find the Goryo's Vengeance. So, a little rough. Killing the Ashiok wouldn't have stopped that, so it is what it is. I also believe after this match that I was going a little too like fearful of the Goryo's Vengeance post board. When I've got like Stubborn Denials and Kavus and things, I think I should have just been more in on being the straightforward aggressive zoo deck and less on like being terrified of getting comboed. So that Stubborn Denial was just to get my opponent to completely tap out so that I could wear and tear and get both the saga and the cookbook. That was the only reason for that soft stub there. Now, obviously, I can't control them having another saga, but One step at a time. I also had to double check and make sure Goryo's Vengeance wouldn't let me like take something from their yard, because I would have loved to get there at Traxa. Alas, it does not. Kind of rude like that. So get some chip damage in with Nicodle. Like, yeah, they have the food tokens, but there's always that random chance that I just like run into a couple tribal flames off the top. Be pretty dope. I think my best draw by a mile will be Hidetsugu. I'm also really bad when it comes to sideboarding with Hidetsugu. Like, I'll end up shaving a couple copies of like Wild Nicodle or Ragavan, but a lot of the players that I watch a lot will just aggressively cut like all 4 Ragavan, all 4 Wild Nicodle, and that's probably a pretty good idea, especially if you have like Hidetsugu and engineered explosives. So I would have loved for that bolt to go upstairs, but I also don't want to die. You know. Uh Here I'm just kind of hoping that my opponent doesn't know the leyline binding haywire might interaction. So they can sack this haywire might with the leyline binding ETB trigger on the stack, and the construct would not get sacrificed. Should have used the treasure there for Hidetsugu, like Sacred Foundry Forest treasure. That way I could have had the Zagoth Triumph with Stubborn Denial up. Fortunately, opponents just like completely rebuilt. That's kind of what 3 or 4 copies of Urza Saga will do to you. Card is pretty good at winning a board stall. Especially in a deck like theirs, it's able to get a cookbook and ditch a couple cards and just grow the constructs kind of out of competition. So Hallowed Fountain, Hall of Storm Giants. They revealed Kahira, so it's blue-white control. And my thought was I would rather have them like prismatic ending the Neshoba Brawler than the Territorial Kavu. So I figured they were just going to exile it right away. But they didn't, so that's pretty dope. And then here, I'm not playing out a land pre-combat because I want to see if they'll just take the hit off this Neshoba Brawler. And they do, so we get the Tribal Flames, or double Tribal Flames for lethal. Really sweet game there. I figured if I played the land first, then maybe they would get the idea in their head, oh, he could have double Tribal Flames. And I did not want them to Solitude my Neshoba Brawler if they had it. So we call that big brain moves. So we got Rogren Triome, Hall of Storm Giants, take the Ragavan hit. So I'm assuming that means like counter spell. And there's just not much of a need for me to throw Scion of Draco just out into a counter spell. Especially when I've got like 13 points of burn rolled up. And if they didn't kill my monkey last time, then I'm kind of hoping they won't this time. I get some chip damage in, they fetch, and all of a sudden, like, Dash Monkey double Tribal Flames is lethal if my opponent taps out for something. They tap out for anything at all. And so Dash Ragavan into them because I want to make it to where these Tribal Flames are lethal. Keep putting pressure on the board. Kind of hoping that my opponent, like, yeah, Solitudes. I was really hoping for Land Supreme Verdict So I knew the coast would be clear to just untap and double tribal flames. But I'm kind of under that impression like they've got to deal with my Scion. So there at some point they're gonna have to tap out or tap a bunch of mana to answer the Scion, in which case I can hopefully just tribal flames for lethal right then and there. So kind of like this, yeah. If you're gonna instant speed verdict, I'm gonna five ball you in the face. Really good league. Ended up being a 4-1, but a very clean 4-1. The only loss was to that Goryo's Vengeance Asmo deck. And a lot of that was because I just didn't know what my post board plan should be against that deck. Like, should I be more controlling? Should I be more aggressive? And I think the answer is be more aggressive. Like, they don't have a lot of interaction. So if I just keep a heavy hand of Ragavan, Kavu, Brawler, whatever, an answer to Asmo, then I'm fine. And then like have Hidetsugu and rest in peace just in case I need to clear things up, or even Hidetsugu like EE, something like that. But yeah, Zoo's been a lot of fun. I think if you're looking for a deck that's got some good tempo-y kind of gameplay to it, then this is a very solid deck for you to invest in. It's very, I guess now that the Ragavan price has dropped substantially, like the deck is very affordable. Ragavan being one of the most expensive cards, and I think they're like 15 ticks or so right now. But all the other threats in the main deck are dirt cheap. The Leyline bindings are like 10 or so. The Fluster Storms and Teferis in the board can be a little bit pricier. Orvar, I don't think is necessary. I tried the league with it, and if you don't run into creativity, then you never want to see it. But at the same time, if you do run into creativity, you still just have like Flusterstorm, EE, Stubborn Denials, like your aggression, your burn plan. And you could always throw in, like, what is it? Not Containment Priest, but one of those other ones. It's like if a creature didn't enter the battlefield and it wasn't cast, you exile it. So, like Hallowed Moonlight, Containment Priest, I guess, works too. You could always throw something like that in the spot and be kind of fun. Other than that, yeah, hope you enjoy some Zoo videos. Like, I think it's a fun deck. I think it's a nice change of pace from Shadow, and definitely like cracking it out from time to time. So, as always, if you're enjoying the commentary, enjoying the content, feel free to drop a like and a sub. Helps out the channel greatly. Otherwise, have a link to the Twitter down below, the Twitch, the deck list, and yeah, all that. So hope everybody has an awesome rest of your day. Stay safe, enjoy some good food and company. I will catch y'all back live later. Adios for now.